So today I'm going to talk about scat, as in scat happens. So you can't plan for everything. Like a lot of backpackers, I carry a minimal amount of medical gear. I mean, you can't plan for everything. I've said before, when I did the CDT, a doctor friend of mine that I backpacked with a lot, I told him he was in charge of my first aid kit, and I wanted to do everything but open heart surgery, and it had to weigh 12 ounces. So again, you just can't carry everything, but you should put a lot of thought into what you're going to carry, and maybe even what you can use as non-medical items for splints or different tapes, whatever. You never know what you're going to run into. So today I'm going to tell you a story about what happened to me, years ago. And, I've been hiking in Glacier my whole life. And I took the train out there one year, and I really think this is what caused my problem. From Michigan to take the Amtrak to Glacier, it takes you 12 hours just to get around the pond, which the pond in this case is Lake Michigan. So the train goes all the way down to the bottom of the lake of Chicago, then all the way up the lake to the Twin Cities before it actually starts west. And for me, a train trip to Glacier is a 36-hour ordeal. And, I usually don't get a berth. I just go coach. And so in that case, I sat on that train for 36 hours, sleeping in coach chairs, trying to sleep, moving around as much as I could, but still pretty sedentary for 36 hours. Then jump off the train in East Glacier and hit it. The train gets in, evening, and I wanted to get at least up toward to Medicine, where I could get a permit, which is across the reservation, which is actually the Continental Divide Trail. And so I really hit it hard that night. And then I started doing 20-mile days, and I was fine for the first 50, 60 miles, but I use a route that a lot of people don't use. It's an off-trail route to hook my itinerary and permits together, and it's called Floral Park. And for years, I didn't know, how to get across there. It's across Sperry Glacier, so you start at Sperry Campground. It's a long day, and, it's a 20-mile day. And you can't camp in between these 2 points. So you've got to get from Sperry Glacier through Floral Park, through a bowl to Hidden Lake, up to Logan, and then you still have the Highline Trail all the way to Granite Park. But it's very doable. I've done it many times. I could still do it, I'm sure. I haven't done it in several years. But anyway, early on, I didn't know where that route was. And as much as I would ask rangers who knew, they don't like to give that information out. They're probably not encouraging people to cross that route. And it's, it's not a cakewalk. I know several years ago, a kid won some prize from Backpacker magazine. And he was, from Kentucky, maybe studying the ministry or something. I can't remember the story, but anyway, they did an article that made that route sound simple, but didn't really tell you how to do it. It just showed that it existed. And this kid tried it and came up missing, and they found him a few years later, halfway down Avalanche Lake, where the glacier pours off. I think a father and son climbing found him in there. And there has been another kid from Michigan that was working in the park out there that was either trying to find that route or a different route down to Avalanche Lake, and ended up dying up in that bowl, high on that bowl. And so when I was looking for it, it took me a couple of seasons years ago. And really the first season I actually found it, I was on it, but it just didn't look right. And so I went high above Hidden Lake thinking I had to go higher. And I got caught up there in some weather, and it was getting dark, and I had to camp there, which was illegal, but I didn't have any choice. I couldn't come down that night. And so I camped up there, and in the middle of the night, at like 3 in the morning, I wake up in the fetal position, and it's like someone had super glued my knees in place. And I couldn't straighten them out. It was very painful. I was afraid to straighten them out because I thought I was going to do permanent damage. I was just stuck. But I knew I had to do something. You know, if I laid there, and 5,000 years from now, they would find me and call me Bogman. So I had to do something, and I straightened them out, and it was very painful. And I was afraid to go back to sleep because I thought, what if I end up in the fetal position again and they're stuck again? And but I fell back asleep, and I did wake up in that same situation again. It's kind of like if you take your hand on your wrist and squeeze real hard for like 30 seconds, and then just take your hand off and try and open your fingers. It's that kind of a feeling, kind of a creaky, squeaky feeling. Try it. Well, that's what my knees were like, only with a lot of pain. And so in the morning, 6 o'clock, I knew I had to deal with it. I straightened my knees out, and I hurt. I could hardly walk. And I've talked to doctors since then time. Nobody's ever really diagnosed what my issue was. I still don't know what it was, but I had to get down to Hidden Lake, climb all the way up to Logan, and then I just hitchhiked back to the train and went home. And I had knee problems for like a year. Just, not real bad, but I thought maybe I tore meniscus. I didn't know. It was just bothering me, but eventually it went away. But those kind of things happen. Now today, there wasn't an inReach back in those days, satellite communications, but had there been, I may have hit the button because that's how much of a hurt locker I was in. But I had to use self-reliance. I had to get out of there on my own, and I did, but it was not a picnic. And so those kind of things happen, and you're just going to have to deal with them. Again, today it's a little better because, something unexpected happens. I saw like Dixie's video where she had some heart issues. I think she was in maybe Utah, I can't remember, and she had to get flown out. And luckily today, that kind of technology exists because it could have been a much worse situation. And so you can't plan for everything. SCAD happens. But you should anticipate as much as you can what you're going to need for different situations, and think about when you're going into areas that might be more remote, what are you going to do if something happens? Have a plan. Keep smiling.